And it's part of the adventure that Sandhya Devi and I have together to be a couple teaching the yogic principles out in the world, to set the example that it's not just for renunciates, that you don't have to be a renunciate and abandon the world in order to be a yogi, but rather it's how you live in the world that makes you an example in the world of what a yogi does in every circumstance. So that karma yoga path is different than retiring from the world, which is also a legitimate path. So many of the great gurus and teachers that have eventually taught us have retired, gone to a cave, gone off and been alone with themselves, and it's another legitimate path of being a yogi. So also are the many bhaktis that you see who don't talk about philosophy quite as much perhaps, but have deep and amazing sentiments that you can get swept up in and that you can feel are very important. And masters of each of those traditions come and share their wisdom, have come and shared their wisdom with us and with the rest of the world, which is quite exceptional. The time we live in is a time when cultures like seed pods could, if they had enough integrity left, break open and spill the contents of their history out onto the world so that everyone can benefit from it. Sadly, so many of the indigenous cultures of our planet were so badly disabled and damaged during the colonizing period that they couldn't maintain their traditions in a way that they could bring them out into the world. So of course, they're in a much more position of retreat where they're just on their own tribal basis trying to keep whatever is left of their culture alive. So what I want you to know is that what makes India, and from now on tonight I'm going to call India Bharat, its original name. So what makes Bharat unique compared to the rest of the cultures of our planet is that they trace their history back more than 1 million years. And provably with astronomical references to the Mahabharata, the largest poem on our planet. That is a history of what took place in Bharat, in that culture. In the Mahabharata, there's about 300 astronomical indications that say exactly what the sky looked like when Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata conflict took place. And using computers, those star and planet positions that are given in such abundance were backdated to give us a figure for the speaking of the Bhagavad Gita. And it's approximately 5,500 years ago. And this is no longer really debatable. So in case you don't see the immediate consequence of that, it means that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all took place after the complete knowledge base of India had been delivered to India, to Bharat. And it means that, like the language of Sanskrit, which leaked out of Bharat and created Greek, Latin, Aramaic, Phoenician, Hebrew, the European languages, Russian, Scandinavian languages, Gaelic, the Irish, Ireland, Aryan land, and affected English tremendously. So this seeding of the rest of the world with knowledge is what was responsible for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There's no scholarly contradicting that now. That knowledge was already traveling around. There was seafaring, extensive seafaring at that time. The Chinese were also doing extensive seafaring at that time. And both China and Egypt credit Bharat as the place from which they got their knowledge. And there are hieroglyphs in Egypt that show Brahmins from India with ponytails instructing the Egyptians in mathematics. So tonight's class in particular is going to take us back in history, because one of the things that makes the culture of Bharat complicated to Westerners is we're expecting a simple story like the ones we got from the Abrahamic religions, with a prophet, no knowledge of the supreme being, just vague references, and faith-based and blind faith-based. Now, there's nothing wrong with faith. Faith is, of course, a wonderful recognition of the fact that there's something greater than ourselves. So I don't mean to denigrate the people of faith. What I'm saying is that knowledge is supposed to travel with faith, but our experience is that knowledge has not. And hence, it is not the Abrahamic religions, those three religions that gave us psychology. They did not give us astronomy. They did not give us science as we know it. They came with faith in a particular way in something greater. Now, and that's laudable. So in no way would I ever denigrate them, but they formed in the context of the already existing Vedic culture of Bharat. So how much leaked out, we'll leave that to all the historians to track as much as possible, but I've tracked a great deal of it. I have a degree in history and comparative religion, so I've made it my business to track a great deal of this. And I can just tell you that it's a little awkward right now. But I can quote Carl Sagan in the following way. As an astronomer, there's a video of him, if you look it up. He's in a Shiva temple with about 100 Shiva lingas, the stones that are formed into this elliptical looking stone figure by the rivers, by the Narmada River in Bharat. And Carl Sagan, is walking through them, and he says, looking at the camera, only ancient India and modern science calculated the age of our Earth and of the universe in billions of years. But then, scientist that he is, with his own set of blinders on, he says, but India must have done it by coincidence. So, sorry, Carl, but that's where science got it from. They got it from India, first of all, from Bharat. And second of all, it's trillions, not billions. So in fact, Bharat calculates the age of the universe and our planet and all the things that we're surrounded by in not just billions of years, but trillions of years. And so all of these things have been hidden from our general knowledge because colonization went on for 300 years. And the point was European countries were taking whatever they could get from the other cultures of the world in the name of religion, sadly. Not that all people of those religions are like that themselves, but in the name of Catholicism, the essential stealing of everything from the indigenous world was done with an edict from the Pope of the Catholic Church. If you want a reference later on, I can tell you exactly which papal bull and when. But this is the history of our planet. So tonight, we're going to go way, way, way back beyond that. And I'm going to show you how this historical revelations took place over a fairly long period of time for Bharat, which is why they don't just have one book. They have a library of knowledge that they've been accumulating for a very long time. So when you have a library, no one book necessarily takes dominance over all the others, and therefore you'd be much more patient about what people know or think or believe, because if all of us started at a big library from different corners of the library, we'd become specialists in subjects of our interest and coincidentally of the ones we bumped into. So if this is the case, and if you add to this that we're immortal beings, that is to say, the basic premise of yoga and of the culture of Bharat, which is all living entities that we experience on this planet are immortal beings simply dressed in a body made of earth, water, fire, air, and space. Every single one of us and them, not just humans, but every creature, is simply an eternal being called an Atma, dressed in the five-element body du jour, the one they're in right now. So every one of them is seeing this astounding universe from the angle of the eyes and body that they're living in. If you will, think of these as classrooms that each one of us has been in. To have a human body, we've done hippopotamus 101 and 102. We've done grizzly bear, we've done this, we've done all of it. We've done every puppy dog you've ever been in love with. We've done every kitty cat. We've done every virus, microbe, protozoa, you name it. Those were classrooms where we looked out with our immortal consciousness and observed two things: the world through the eyes, or 50,000 eyes if you were a housefly. Whatever eyeballs you were looking out of were, first of all, designed by someone. So we're studying the design of the Creator in each body that we live in. Next, it affords us particular kinds of experience. We are here, according to the Vedas, collecting experience. That's why we're here. Like any student in any university, we're here collecting experience, and you need one of these diving suits in order to do that. And then the diving suit gives you experiences according to its sophistication. We all understand this. If you've ever driven your normal cars for a while and then somebody put you inside of a Lamborghini or something like that, you just go, I never knew. Who knew cars could do this? So this is our car. Therefore, we're right now limited by the capacity for pleasure, experience, perception. The vehicle that we're in is affording us. And we're gathering experience with this as literally our scientific instrument. This is a scientific instrument with which we are contacting the experiences available to us on this planet, on this plane of reality. This is the yogic viewpoint. So the simple reality of being a yogi is you separate yourself from the skin you're wearing. Declare yourself the consciousness and not the skin, not the changing body, but you're the observer inside, and you're not aging as the body ages, and you're not any of the things that the body is. It's just your instrument, which is wonderful and miraculous, but to identify with it as self is the dilemma of being in this university. I've named that I amnesia. Forgetfulness of who I am. I want you to understand, if you go home right at this moment and you don't forget that you're not the body you're inhabiting, but you are an immortal being called an Atma, that the consciousness that holds this together, activates it, animates it, and perceives it, is you, and is the symptom of you as an immortal being. And if you don't forget that, your yoga will be perfected. If you go home and forget that, you will go right back into whatever states of material consciousness are caused by whatever you're exposed to, and you'll continue that way until again you're reminded who you really are. And we'll see when you can grab a hold of that idea and not let go of it. A yogi is someone who is grabbing a hold of that idea and trying not to let go of it. Now, before I go further, we need to begin formally. So that was the front porch. As soon as we go through the front door, we have to honor the gurus that gave me the knowledge I'm sharing with you. Otherwise, it's disproportionate. It looks like it's coming from me, not happening. It's passing through me. I am passing on to you Vedic knowledge. If you ask me afterwards to give you chapter and verse, I will, of where in the Vedic library it's from. And that's the requirement of a guru. A guru is simply someone through whom knowledge is passing to others, and they're a carrier for that knowledge in the service of it, and they must identify where within that body of learning that's been accumulated for millions of years in Bharat, they must identify which text their knowledge is coming from, so that the person receiving it can go check up on them and make sure that they're not just making it up. It's not just a bunch of fairy tales. It's a bunch of very complex, metaphorical, allegorical, and literal events that need to be understood in a particular way to understand the knowledge that they're trying to pass on. But this first part that I told you is not metaphorical, not allegorical, it's literal science. The other side of science is science cannot explain consciousness because consciousness is not from matter. It's that simple. You can see that you are consciousness And if you do, you don't need anyone outside of you to validate it. That's not faith, that's direct experience. When you have direct experience of what I just said, you will never stop doing it. Because the pleasure that comes from being who you really are is greater than any amount of material pleasure. It's just a practical matter. As soon as you are having constant, steady pleasure higher than any orgasmic thrill that the material world can offer you, and it's on a steady basis, you're going to go steady with that. Just as drug addicts get to the bottom of the pond and think, I'd rather just kill myself with drugs and be happy for 6 months or a year or whatever. But that's the dumb version of the same thing. The smart version is, why should I kill myself? Why should I hurt anyone else? Why should I violate the laws of nature? I don't need anything that bad. Why don't I just stay in my original, joyful, transcendental consciousness no matter what happens to me? Since all of that is just stuff. It's just the goo of matter doing what it does. If I don't let myself get brought down by it anymore, then I won't get brought down by it anymore. It's completely up to us. That's why it's called yoga, is what you decide to connect to. If you connect to the next painful thing that happens to you and hang on to that, you can hang on to it for 20 years. You know some people who have, who talk about it all the time. 20 years ago, the following happened to me, and they're still playing that record. Man, you'd think it would wear out. So now, where we begin, we look behind the teacher. If I bowed down, and then behind me you saw another person sitting, and then they bowed down and you saw another person sitting behind them, that's called a disciplic succession or a parampara. A line of people whose knowledge descended from the divine and then was passed down from one to the next, to the next, to the next. So a proper guru begins by acknowledging the line of teachers that are behind them, points you in that direction, so you dare not stop here. You dare not think. Any guru that lets themselves be worshipped is a charlatan. There's no such thing as worshiping a guru. You try to give the honor to the guru and they'll go like that, faster than you can blink. If they don't, they're charlatan. If they let it stop here, out. Phony. That's a phony. So this is the mark of the genuine process that we begin. Om. That's the dial tone. Ready? Om. Guru Brahma.
Guru Brahma,
Guru Vishnu.
Guru Vishnu,
Guru Devo.
Guru Devo,
Maheshwaraha.
Maheshwaraha,
Guru Sakshat.
Guru Sakshat,
Parabrahma.
Parabrahma,
Tasmai Sri
Tasmai Sri,
Gurave Namaha.
Gurave Namaha.
My favorite, thank you for your beautiful voices. My favorite is a different one because I came from a dark cave called Detroit, Michigan. Worse, a small suburb of Detroit, Michigan, filled with Caucasians on Mother's Little Helper. And remember that song? And so this one says, Om
Om
Agana
Agana
Timirandasya
Timirandasya
Ganan Gana
Ganan Gana
Shalakaya
Shalakaya
Chakshur
Chakshur
Unmilitam
Unmilitam
Gena
Yena
Tasmai
Tasmai
Sri Gurave
Sri Gurave
Namaha.
Namaha.
Translation, I was blind and ignorant and I couldn't see and I didn't know. And my guru came and forced open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I honor anyone who can do that and who takes the trouble to do so. So the only way you can pay such a guru back is to repeat the process. I am paying my guru back for what he gave me. If I don't, I'm just an ungrateful lout. If I do, then I'm actually saying, I got it. Pass it on. He's saying, get it, pass it on. There's nothing you can do to make the guru happy except pass it on. Because there's nothing they want, so you can't give them anything. If you give them anything, they'll just print books. That's the only thing they'll do, is somehow make the knowledge more available. That's the other symptom of a guru. Give them $1 billion or $1 million or 10 million or $10 billion, and they'll hand it over to someone and say, feed people, take care of people, make sure nobody's starving, and get this knowledge available. Do not propagandize, make it available. So this knowledge does not allow coercion. It does not allow conversion. You cannot convert. It only allows conversation. And you must opt into the conversation. If you don't, no true follower of the Vedic Dharma will ever try to corner you and pin you down and force feed you something that you don't want. Not allowed. The direct instructions in the Vedas not to do it. Do not ever force anyone with this knowledge. Clear as can be at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. If you want to know chapter 18, last 10 verses of the chapter, read them. First thing Krishna says to Arjuna, he says, number 1, have you heard me? Arjuna says, yes. Are you determined? Has that changed anything? Yes, good. Next, he says, don't ever give this knowledge to someone who doesn't want it. Then he says, only give it to people who really want it. Then he says, but nobody is more dear to me than someone who gives this knowledge to people who do want it. If this was followed, there would be no such thing as forceful conversions of anybody anywhere on the planet. And no proper follower of the Vedic Dharma does that. They're available, and when the person asks questions, they respond. They do not coerce, they do not force, they do not trick, they do not cajole, they do not propagandize, they do not do sneaky things, they do not do subliminal advertising, they do not force you, and they do not threaten you with hell. They do not threaten you with anything. They simply say, I find this to be ecstatic, beautiful, delicious, and wonderful. Try some if you'd like. So again, these are the things to look for in a teacher. If it's coercive, it's incorrect. If they're shoving it at you, it's incorrect. If they're colonized with it, it's wrong attitude. Because the whole point of yoga is every Atma, every single one of us and you're all here by volition. This means you're flying your airplane. So the knowledge that I'm going to share with you tonight is for you to consider as a possible aid to the flying of your airplane. It has no other purpose. Because when you go home, you're going to go home to you, plus or minus the knowledge that you need to hold and maintain a particular state of awareness. And without the right knowledge, you will not maintain a self-directing state of awareness, because like anything else in this world, that's scientific. You understand? It's scientific. Scientific started in the Vedas. It means we're surrounded by rules of nature right now. And everything we do is being conducted by rules built into the system. So if anyone was halfway intelligent, they'd see the rules and get it. They'd just look around, see the whole thing is rule-based and go, I'd like to meet the scientist. That's all. You don't have to say it's the supreme being. It doesn't matter if you do or don't. Just say, I'd like to meet the scientist. Amazing contraption. I'd like to find who made it. In fact, if you don't, it's a kind of an IQ test. If you don't get it and you don't look around and go, this is amazing, somebody made this, I've got to find out who made this, then you kind of flunk the IQ test. You get the dunce cap and you go stay in the dunce cap as long as you want. But if you're paying attention at all, just like coming to a building like this, you'd say, who built this? That's amazing. I can't do that. I know I can't build a house like this. And I know I couldn't do it unless somebody taught me. So when you hear somebody It's all about me. Selfie-based New Age movements say the guru's within you. Ask their guru within them to fix their computer, or better still, make a computer, or better still, solve any great problem. And ask them if the guru within them can do that quickly for them. If that's all it takes is a little self-affirmation and a picture on Facebook. So right now there's so much of this intellectual fluff and chaos going on because people don't know how to distinguish and hold people accountable when they're really teaching something that has legs, that has history, that has substance. And this is what we now have to sort through. Thankfully, mass media has connected us, but now we have to sort through 99.9% of fluff and get to something that has some substance. So that is what I'm sharing with you tonight. I'm not just taking you to my favorite conclusion. I'm winding us back before two historical events. So here's the first one. The 5,000 years ago that I just said, 5,500 and some years ago, Bhagavan Sri Krishna appeared on our planet in Bharat, and the name for this appearing is Avatar. Would you say it?
Avatar.
Ava means to descend. Tar gives us the word star, like starlight's descending. It means to descend and heal, nurture, benefit, and liberate. So an avatar is the descent of divine intelligence and being from an invisible place to visibility on a planet filled with beings who don't know yet who they are, with the intention of revealing to them who they are as a part of the visit. An avatar is not like a prophet. They don't come for 10 years, 20 years, a few years, 3 years, teach for a little while and then leave. They come, they stay for 100 years or so. They actually go get a chance to put out teachings that stay behind in a language so that they don't change over time. And those teachings are made available with exactly that as the story behind them. And again, they're not coercive, they're not colonizing, they're not rape and pillage, and they're never given by force. That's the symptoms of an avatar. All of those things have to be in place. But it is the notion that whoever's intelligent enough to make a planet could damn well come down and be on that planet and talk to all the nice people. Think about it for a moment. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to answer that question. Is it possible for the designer of a planet to come down to that planet and visit it? Well, duh. Thank you, Sati. Of course. So then, the assertion of Bharat as a culture is simply that several times in their history, 9 to be precise, that's happened. And that in the last recent historical period, the most recent descent was Bhagavan Sri Krishna. That's the name that avatar was associated with. Multiple names, but those two summarize it. Krishna means the most attractive being. Everything's got some attraction. Every one of us here has some attractiveness. You just walk down the street and people will be attracted to some quality of you or meet them and start talking to them. Everyone's attractiveness is different. But the definition of the Supreme Being for the word Krishna is that being who is attractive to everyone to an unlimited degree. That's all. Now raise your hand if that's you. I'm out. I'm out. So an avatar is that. It's the whole enchilada coming in a user-friendly form and appearing on a planet like ours and becoming available for the people of the time in which he has descended, and it's he, she, by the way, in which they have descended. So they descend in these more refined avatars as male, female. So in the case of Krishna, his female counterpart was Radha or Lakshmi, depending on how you are describing the angle of the relationship. But this is all articulated. So here's the thing about yoga and the Vedas. It's a lot of language, a lot of words, and a lot to learn. So be patient with yourself. Don't be put off by the large amount of stories and vocabulary, because the size of the story is going to reformat your hard drive and make you a big thinker. If you're just patient, the point of having more vocabulary, a wider story, a longer vision is the same thing Carl Sagan was saying. He was saying, you know, as a scientist, I really have a different feeling about my thought process because I see billions of years. I don't see thousands of years. I see billions. He's saying scientists see billions of years. And he at least credited Bharat with doing that as well. But yet he didn't know the full story. So as a scientist, he said, but that was probably a coincidence. He just couldn't quite yet figure it out that it landed there first. That's all. So this isn't a contest someone's got to win either. It doesn't make them a better culture and better people than everyone else. It's not a contest. It's not trying to beat other people to the punch or anything like that. It's not colonizing. So remember that when you hear all this. So you'll know that this is not an attempt to overtake other cultures with a story. This is the historical story in the most perfect and literal and unchanging language that exists on our planet, Sanskrit. So this is what we're now finding out. This is what I found out after being fully educated by the 5,000-year-old culture. And I have 3 degrees. I really went at it and learned with every bit of intensity that I could. So I learned their story, and every story they told led back to India. Every subject I studied led back to Bharat. Chemistry, physics, mathematics, science, religion, fairy tales, children's stories, everything. Language. I just track it. I'm back there again. So this is the reality. And anyone who's blocking that isn't really yet open to this story coming from them from wherever it lives. But let me tell you, I am. If somebody comes and shows me a whole library of knowledge and a language more perfect than the Sanskrit language, with its 50 letters and 4,000 grammatical rules and designed to not be destroyed by time, but I'm open. If you show me an even more precise one, then I'll say, okay, great, thank you. Thanks for showing me that. So right now, my mission in life is simply to say this to the whole planet. I'm not in charge of what you all do, but don't cheat yourself. Don't short shrift yourself. If you're intelligent and you want to find out what's been going on, then you damn well better find out how long it's been going on and what the stories are that have been passed down. It's in your best interest to hear those stories and make your own decision. You're still going to make your own decision. So why is it a threat to hear a story that's 1,000,000 years older than yours? Prove it wrong if you want. So this is really important, that this isn't a fairy tale night. This is knowledge sharing of an epic proportion. So 5,000 years ago, the Mahabharata was written down. And that means that a 100,000 verse poem was written. Got it? Ever written a 1,000 verse poem? Right. So I can't even get my head around, not only that, but with thousands of characters. Are you kidding me? Telling history. And inside that is the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the most concise instructional manual on yoga that exists on our planet, more so than Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So there's real gems in the midst of this. But what is unique, so this is the last piece on the history part. 5,000 years ago, the yogis and sages of India said, we're in trouble. The next age is going to be so entropic, it's going to cause so much chaos, that if we don't write all this knowledge down, because it was oral, kept in song and poetry, huge amounts of oral literature. But if we don't write this down, it's going to be lost. And what they were seeing coming was what we saw as colonialism. When the British were in Bharat, they would take library books from the Indian libraries and burn them to heat their bathwater. That's what jackasses they were. They'd take books from the library and burn them to heat their bathwater. So various cultures went to India. When the Turkish Muslims, which is not all Muslims, hear me clearly, I'm not against anybody's religion, but when the Turkish Muslims went to India, there was a library called Nalandar, and they lit it on fire and killed all the keepers of it. And that library burned for 3 months. 3 months. So these are the forces that have been shaping our world. And if a culture like Great Britain or any of the cultures that did this is shy of hearing this, I'm sorry, you have to hear it. You didn't do it, it was ancestors, but your ancestors really screwed up. They really made a mess of the world. And we're just sorting it out now. And you have to say, damn right, I'm with you. Now I know you're not like them. Otherwise, if you don't want to hear the story of what your ancestors did, I'm sorry, but then you're probably like them. The likelihood is with a little money and a little incentive, you'd do it again. So needless to say, we don't celebrate Columbus Day in the Vedic culture. Nor do they in the cultures that were destroyed by Columbus. So let's just get clear on all this. But we don't turn against the current people of the cultures that did this because they didn't do it. They might have taken birth as the people that their culture killed and destroyed it. You know, Columbus is all the people he killed took birth in Spain. See? It's a game. It's a big game. All right. So tonight what we're going to do is go back behind Krishna. So until Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, no one in India knew the games that the avatar Bhagavan Sri Krishna taught. So think of them as games. Think of them as revelations. Those revelations that Krishna made 5,000 years ago weren't on the ground yet when Shiva and Durga began. Because that's where we're going tonight. We're backing up and way back. Next, 1,100,000 years ago, an avatar of Vishnu named Ram and Sita appeared on our planet and enacted something called the Ramayana or Ramayana, meaning the journey of Ram and his exile and his wife getting kidnapped and his struggle against this ultimate dark force being Ravana. And it's in a book called the Ramayana. The Ramayana has 24,000 Sanskrit verses. It's the second largest poem in the world. Those two together are at least 10 times larger than the Iliad and Odyssey combined. And they're all interconnected, but the one that happened so far back is a whole nother perspective. So before Ram and Sita appeared in Bharat 1.1 million years ago, nobody knew what they brought as avatars. And what they brought was they came down as a royal couple. Imagine right now, I'll use England because it's a fun switch. But let's say that the Queen and King of England are suddenly this two very charismatic beings, and they get on television and say, so look, you know, we've been waiting to do this, but we think the time is right. We're going to show you ourselves in our true nature now. And so what we're going to do is create a planet near our planet, and we're on TV telling you we're going to do this, and now you can test it. NASA can test it, and everyone can test it. So we're going to create this planet right there. So get the cameras ready. We're going to do it on next Tuesday at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're going to start building the planet. By the end of the day, it'll be a fully functioning planet. And in 1 year, we'll get visits from the residents. And we're going to build this planet. She and I, the Queen and I, are going to do this with you watching on Facebook.
Facebook Live.
Okay? Sign me up. This is how the history of Bharat is described by the scholars of the culture. What they're passing down is an account of trans-dimensional cross-boundary from other realms, worlds, actually from not even within matter, a descent of reality here that reframes the whole experience of being here as the only place. Because these beings have come down to make us aware of the journey that we're on and to contextualize it. So just think about this for a moment. This is one of the most important teachings. The first one, of course, is that we're all Atmas, as I said. And therefore, if anyone tries to coerce you, you say, sorry, you don't get to do that. I mean, if you think, if you're a bully and you have a gun, you can point it at me and put me in jail or something. Yeah, you can do that. Maybe I'll cooperate. But what you can't do is tell me what I believe. That ain't going to happen. Not now, not ever. My right is that I'm the decider of that. You aren't. So just back the hell off and get out of my face. Because you're wasting your time. Because I already know who I am and I'm not going to change that. I'm an immortal being and you really can't have that. You know who said this was Socrates. Remember the story? Socrates was teaching immortality and reincarnation, which he learned in India through Pythagoras, his guru who went to India, learned it, Pita Gurus, and came back and passed it down. And 300-400 years later, Socrates has now learned it. And he's teaching it in Greece and is messing up the politics because it makes people too smart. You can't control them. And he's teaching the same immortality that I'm teaching you right now. And so they give him a choice, go into exile or drink hemlock. He says, I'll drink the hemlock. What do I care? So time to drink the hemlock. All of his students are around him and he's about to drink it. And one of the students says, Socrates, where would you like to be buried? Socrates looks at him like, you dummy. He says, you'll have to find me first. Dumb monkey, I just taught you for 20 years you can't, I'm not the body. What do you mean, where do I want to be buried? I'm not the body. I'm just letting go of the body. Don't you get it? And they got it. So he was a yogi, clearly a yogi. This is what he is. He's saying, you can't mess with me. No, I'm not going to go into exile. And yeah, well, and I'm 80 something, whatever. So what do I care? I'll be remembered if you poison me. If I go skulking off to get away from you, I won't. So you're you're dumb politically. You're making me famous. Thank you. I mean, at 86, if somebody makes you famous forever, that's your friend. He's going like, sure, bring it on. Bring me the Kool-Aid, you know. I'm in. So this is the thing. So now I want to keep going forward with this. So this is what the avatars are doing. This is the point. And so if it happened again, we would all have the same experience that these people recorded 5,000 years ago or 1,000,000 years ago. That these beings came and did things so off the charts that it's not even close to what humans can do. And you can argue that they were aliens, and it doesn't matter. Do you think they were aliens? Fine. Yeah, in the fundamental definition of the word, we're the aliens, but yeah. They were aliens coming down to this planet and showing us what's really possible. But history records them as avatars, explaining who we are, where we are, so that we're no longer confused. This is what I call contextualizing. What I'm doing right now is setting a context for you that if you accept it, you will no longer be bound in your one tiny little lifetime or your tiny little apartment. You will suddenly open yourself to a stretch of time, at minimum 5,000 years if you don't go for the 1,000,000. Doesn't matter. But you know something existed 1,000,000 years ago. We just got clear with that. Remember, scientist is someone who believes billions of years ago, not millions. So you don't believe in 1,000,000,000 years ago. If you believe in 1,000,000,000 years ago, why don't you believe 1,000,000 years ago, Mr. Scientist? What's your problem? Well, nobody could know that long, really. You've got proof of that? Or you're just speculating? Oh, sorry. You understand? So now let's go further back. Let's go further back than 1,000,000 years ago. Let's go back to the oldest records that are spoken of in India, in Bharat, And those are that in the beginning, a planet like ours is prepared to receive humans by all the other creatures being placed upon it. But because humans are the only ones with free will, humans are based on habit. Animals, habitat. Habitat. Habitat is where they live. Humans are not shaped by where they live in terms of their fundamental ability to choose. That free will that allows them to choose, they create a habitat. What have we just done? Look at what we've done to the planet. We've made all the habits change, all the habitat change. Show me a group of animals that have done similar things to the planet. They just do what they do according to the nature of their body, and they don't have the free will. So, according to the Vedas, when a planet is ready, a group of beings called Manus, would you repeat?
Manus.
Manu, from which we get Manusya, from which we get mankind. A bunch of Manus are assigned to a planet that's ready. They come down and plant the DNA that makes human life next layer on that planet, and then they teach those humans who they are and why they're there. Complete opposite of the stupid caveman theory and of us just evolving blindly. You know, I don't know if you know the reason that completely invalidated Darwin, but if everything evolved randomly and the species all were randomly evolving in every direction, there would be millions of fossils showing the mistakes they made in trying to morph into another body. All of those would be fossilized. And so the mistake in his theory is that there's no evidence of that gradient of trial and error. And no way by random evolution, all the species would get it right first try. Do you understand? So therefore, without that fossil evidence, his whole theory is completely gone. What he did see was the avatar story of India, which is Matsya Kurma Varahascha, Narasingho Chavamana Ramo Ramacha Ramascha, Krishna Kalkir Janardanaha. It starts with a fish, then it goes to a turtle. These are avatars. There's a fish avatar, a turtle avatar, a boar avatar, a half lion, half man avatar. These are all supreme beings coming down, the same supreme being coming down in different forms at different times. For what? To maintain a planet to maturity, to prop it up, to get it ready. And then when the Manus plant the humans, they tell them why they're there, who they are as beings. Where is this discussed? In the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says to Arjuna, in the beginning I taught this knowledge unto Vaivasvata Manu, and he taught it to Ikshvaku, and he passed it on to other kings. And in the course of time, the lineage got broken by some circumstance. So this is what happens in the material world. A line of knowledge is coming down. There's a disruption. It's broken. It doesn't go forward. And he said, so Krishna says, and so Arjuna, I have come personally now to revive the knowledge that was originally given. This yogic knowledge that links you to the source of your existence and reaffirms your identity as an immortal being. And therefore gives you the courage and strength and self-understanding so that you can stand in the midst of matter as an individual astronaut charting your course, because no one will die with you. No one will jump on board with you and say, I'll go with you and make everything okay. So the point of being human is it's the realization that you are what you make yourself. Full stop, ladies and gentlemen, full stop. So if you let anyone else make you something, fie on you. You're not really understanding. If you erase all of that that's not useful, you've heard the message of the avatar. So chapter 4, original verses say exactly this. And Arjuna then says, how is it that you and I are born here together on Earth 5,000 years ago. But you just told me that millions of years ago, you appeared on the planet. How is that possible? And Krishna says to Arjun, my dear Arjun, millions of births both of us have had. The difference between you and I is I remember all of them. I'm the Supreme Being, and you don't. You don't have enough memory space, not a big enough hard drive. You can't remember them all. And this is a definition of an avatar. Avatar says, this is my job. I come down here and realign the humans, reset their thinking process. So before Ram came 1.1 million and 100,000 years ago, before Krishna came 5,000 years ago, yoga already existed. That's what Krishna just said. The Manus gave yoga, gave this knowledge of who everyone was to the humans as soon as they were created. There was no gap. Humans were DNA'd in. Now the first humans are on the planet, and then they're taught who they are. They're taught that they're an Atma. They're taught that there's a transcendental realm of Brahman and that they come from there. They're taught all the things that yoga teaches. And here's the next thing they're taught. They're taught that there's a father and mother nature. That the creation itself and all that's created reflect a combination that is at the very beginning of existence of matter, which is the personification of consciousness and the personification of energy get married. They come together. And the personification of consciousness is called Shiva. And the personification of consciousness is called Durga.
Of energy. Of energy.
Sorry. Yes, of energy. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So consciousness and energy, and Durga is energy. So the totality of all energy is the feminine divine as the manifester of this world. And consciousness in all of its forms is emanating from the Father of all beings. Neither one of them independently can make a single rock, mountain, molehill, nothing different. So this, I'm going to illuminate a few of these with a poem as we go along in true Vedic style, because you're supposed to shift hemispheres. So when you hear poetry, it shifts you into your metaphorical brain. And that's the part of the brain with which you actually understand these greater understandings without converting them to fairy tales. This one's called A World in the Image of Grace. Eternity, a frequency, vibrated throughout the void, but nothing else, a subtle pulse that cannot be destroyed. Now broadcast, no future or past, unspoken and as yet unheard, electrical storms, revolving forms, parts of a single word. The letters began to construct a plan, a blueprint with delicate lines, something ecstatic, now holographic, with ratios and endless designs. The word, with a hum, in passages quantum, morphed from the singular Om to a nuclear field with an energy yield as space became matter's new home. Vibrations paired, entwined but not snared in a double helix bond, the warp and woof of the cosmic roof projected from far beyond, filling the dark with a blazing spark, a flash turning black to blue. Before there were ears, interlocking spheres played the hum of a concert that grew. Differentiation created a station for each emerging part. The creative helm, an invisible realm, a distant yet pulsing heart, while the drumbeat rhythm echoed the ritam, the rules of nature. Algorithms reflecting the source formed the numeric grid from what was hid, which unfolded in due course. In emerging groups, convoluted loops formed strings composed of threads. The fabric emerged as the elements surged into currents of blues and reds, contracting, expanding, invisibly blending, waves and particles shaped, a veil in the sky that covers the eye with which the cosmos is draped. Then bright sparks with a jolt emerged from a bolt, a flash animated the whole, the beings entwined in the Creator's mind, Shiva and Jiva, the soul, which called forth the water, his curvaceous daughter, embraced by all as their bride, and in her juice all could reproduce, so each part began to divide, which condensed as the earth, where each form took birth, the final step of the race, transcendental vibration in manifestation, a world in the image of grace, in the image of they who created this way, the transcendent reflected to matter, one rung at a time, from gross to sublime, up and down the celestial ladder.
Very nice.
This is how the Vedas talk in Sanskrit poetry. And I'm doing my best to bring it into English poetry that keeps the essence. But when you read the Veda, you're reading these cryptic descriptions of how these forces became what we view now as male and female. So what this story will do is reframe the way we look at each other in our male and female embodiment, to realize that the male and female body is simply a functional portion of the manifestation of matter that is necessary for it to manifest. And that this concept of the combining and cooperation and the ecstatic that's potential within male and female is not rooted in us. That's our delusion. It's rooted in the universe itself and the way it was created. And it is the coming together of what we see and what we try to explore, but we're exploring it blind. It's like we're blind and don't see, and we're just touching each other in a gross, awkward and unscientific way, an unknowing and even unrespectful way. We don't have this map to show us that we're made in the image of the male and female forces that created the cosmos, and that we're unleashing those forces when we create life with these bodies we inhabit. We're reenacting the miracle of creation. And so we're two walking laboratories, each of which has half of the forces that are necessary and a portion of the other. So it's as if we're 2/3 one thing and 1/3 the other. And we know that's incomplete equation. So we look for the other 2/3 and 1/3. And then when we find that, sparks fly. The original lightning that we see in the sky, the forces of nature that bring everything about, and that so hold us as the beauty of life, are the flashes of lightning between the male and female divine. And we are in their image. And this is the initiation that every indigenous, tribal, natural culture that was enlightened has given their children as they matured to adults for billions of years, however long it's been that we've been on this planet. This was given by the Manus, taught with names, so that as soon as you know this, you can then chant a mantra. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
You should be reveling in the realization that every part of you that is connected to this original consciousness that brought consciousness into the inertness of matter, that is what is present in this mantra. We're reconnecting so that this is not a blind puzzle made by idiots in a random way. This is a beautiful, purposeful manifestation in which every component reflects the design intelligence of the creator, and we're now participating. Om Shakti Ma.
Om Shakti Ma.
So we don't dare go near one another in our embodied form until we know how to reference that in the context of divinity. It will be a sacrilege. We will approach each other wrong. We will not understand that every female is of various images of Durga in all of her infinity, and that every male is an aspect of Shiva in all of his infinity. And that as we approach them, we should not be lascivious and trying to own and grab and take. We should be bowing and in awe and in reverence and in respect. We should realize that they have the potential to create life, and that each one of them is equally divine and equally of magnitude, but each of them is endowed with a certain portion of the divine characteristics. Now, here's how our societies form. Once we start to recognize that we test one another to see how much you were endowed with, not in a hurtful way, but in a testing way, like children do when they compete growing up, to see who can run faster, who can jump higher, who can do this, who can do that. And so we stratify into groups, and somebody ends up having a body that can do the most of everything that it's asked to do. And so the original stratification of us as human beings is around percentages of abilities. And there's no arguing with it. You just go do it in a friendly way in a contest, and you score the highest, and that's that. And those beings, that couple, leads the others because they have just won their respect. No one can outdo them in all the qualities that they all already know that they have. And therefore, for the moment, you're our leaders. Show us how you do it. Because why? Because we're here to perfect ourselves. So how do we perfect ourselves unless we have a paragon, unless we have a paradigm, unless we have a goal, unless we have a role model? And this is what's missing in our culture. We don't have a role model for what we're wearing. This divine form and abilities and empowerments that we're wearing, no one told us. In fact, they shorted it out and told us a whole bunch of lies that stopped us from becoming empowered. Instead of empowering us as much as they could to let everyone reach their highest level, which is the only reasonable way to treat everyone, that's education. That's what everyone deserves. If you just exist, you deserve, as a child, to be put through the game in a respectable way so that your empowerments come forward and we find out, do we have a miracle in our midst who rises to the heights of capability and leads us there? Now when we say, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Shakti Ma,
Om Namah Shivaya, Om Shakti Ma.
We're just pointing and saying, I wish I could plug into Shiva and Durga and download their essence into me. I just want to refill, please. I just want to fill my tank. I just want to make up whatever deficit I may have. And the more I become like them, the more I'm going to embody this ideal here with everyone else. I am not going to use it in a despicable way against them, because if I become like them, I can't do that. The only way you could become despicable is if you try to steal everyone else's glory. That has a name in the Vedic culture. It's called Asura. Say it.
Asura.
Sura means light. Asura doesn't just mean dark, it means against the light. So there's a special meaning in that. The Asura doesn't just want to defeat you They want to eat you. They want your energy, because if you don't do this with an ideal, you do this with a steal. And this is the grabby, despicable culture. I don't even need to mention names. This is the culture of despicable grabbing and taking. That is asura. That is the path to darkness. Take what you want, devour it, eat a people, destroy their culture, take whatever you want, take whatever you must have, make them degraded, degrade them and make them your slaves. Yep, a good old-fashioned rape and pillage culture. Asura, that which the Deva and Sura culture of Bharat has fought against for millions and millions of years. The only thing that a divine person would fight against is a Rakshasa, a devourer who wants to eat your children, who wants to eat you, who wants to take everything and leave waste behind, who wants to simply eat and destroy and take and lives only for this day and only for this life. That is despicable. That is the root of despicable behavior. The recognition that everyone is divine, that every living entity is, that if you're here, there must be a way for us to live together, speaking to all the creatures, that if we're ever going to eat you, we're certainly not going to put you in a dark room, give you a despicable life of misery and suffering, and then eat your suffering, eat your body as our suffering now, and pass it on. So this definition is so straightforward. Shiva and Durga are the blunt reality of male and female, but they're refined and beautiful. So first you must see the part of them that is primally at the root of the tree. And once you see that, then the next step is to see their elegance and their beauty, and to see how this world came into being from them. So here we go. This one's called, now here's a definition for you. Each of these beings, Durga and Shiva, they each have 1,008 names. Think about it. Why do we give someone a nickname? Because they have more qualities, and we find a name that goes with those qualities. I've had 2 nicknames this lifetime. First is Peter Pan, because I was always looking for another world. I was eyes upon that other world. The second was Energizer Bunny, because I never run out of energy. I'm designed to just be energetic. So, but if I really was divine, if I really was all of those qualities, I'd have 10 names or 15. Arjuna had 10 names. It's not unreasonable that if you really did a lot of amazing things, you'd get a name for it. I actually have a few others, but this isn't about me, so we'll not go there. But what it's about is understanding that Shiva and Durga have a multitude of names. So Shakti Ma is one of the names for Durga. Why? Because Shakti is that energy. All of the energy is called Shakti. And she's the Ma. That means all of it exists in her being and is an emanation of her being. So when you're in touch with that energy, you're in touch with her. You should go, Jai Ma. Jai means victory. Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Try. Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
It's just spontaneous. You just feel the energy, see lightning go, when you go, Jai Ma. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, you're so cool. Look at you go. Yeah, Shakti Ma. See? You celebrate it. You know who it is when they're talking. Rumble, 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 rumble. You go, whoa, Shivaji. Ah. So another name for Shiva is Shambhu.
Shambhu.
Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambhu.
Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambhu.
Hara Hara
Hara Hara
Mahadeva
Mahadeva
Shambhu.
Shambhu.
Hara 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 Mahadeva Shambhu.
Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambhu.
Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambhu.
Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambhu.
So Shiva's other name is Hara, and Vishnu's other name is Hari. So in the mantra to Shiva, we hear Hara Hara
Hara Hara
Mahadeva,
Mahadeva.
the greatest Deva. Shambhu.
Shambhu.
Shambhu means the great luminous consciousness that transferred all of us from the transcendental world into the realm of matter. And this was described as a linga. Think penis, but not penis. Think oblong object. Something that's like this, like a cylinder with rounded ends. So that's why the British thought that Shiva was the worship of the penis. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The rock that could be mistaken for a male genital is in fact the extension of light from the infinity of Brahman into the temporality of matter, entering the womb, the vagina of Durga, the mother of all creation. So that shaft of light, so it's called a Shiva Linga.
Shiva Linga.
But the Shiva Linga is a Jyotir Linga.
Jyotir.
Jyotir means light. It's an extension of light. So Shambhu is that being that we extended from as we entered Shakti Ma. Like a searchlight, Shambhu swept into the dark where all had slept. Luminous pillar, blazing bright, flashing across the endless night. Durga, dreaming of her love, Shiva descending from above, that lucent shaft of hot desire entered her and lit her fire, tossing sparks as galaxies, spiraling eddies from eternity. Teasing beams and playful motes began the chorus, singing notes up the mad harmonic scale, like a comet's blazing tail. A golden lingam split the sky, penetrating the veils on high, standing alone without support. That Shiva began to move and sport. A flaming figure came into view, emerging from that flame. Shambhu began to move with elegance the complex steps of a cosmic dance, spewing planets of molten lava, the din drum of Nataraja, metronome of heartbeat rhythm, beat out the measures into heavens. Then naked from her endless sleep, Shakti leapt from within the deep, her beautiful hair in disarray. She moved her body in every way, matching his in spinning motion. He the shore, she the ocean. A roar of consonants arose, chattering their ecstatic throes. They spoke creation into life. Ivory Shiva and his ebony wife. He the mountain, she the valley, heart to heart and belly to belly. Reunited, their longing grew, blazing suns in a vault of blue, while nouns, verbs, and prepositions emerged from each erotic position. Sung awake by their songs of love, the myriad creatures below and above awoke at once with a hungry roar. Incarnate life arose once more, taking the elements as their skin. The wandering souls took birth again. In teeming swamps of primal ooze, they lived again and began to choose, which started the mighty cosmic wheel. Elliptical orbits bent to feel. The beams of passion strike their face, the tick of time, the curve of space. like pollen tossed upon the wind. Trillions of seeds were cast again, ovum, sperm, and countless spores in endless shapes and rainbow colors, libraries of DNA with volumes stacked in precise array, protozoic laboratories recombined the ancient stories, cut and pasted every file, recombinant strands, mile after mile, the neural pathways, wild design completed, the mainframe went online. Shiva, seated in eternal bliss, was undisturbed by all of this, while Sati Shakti by his side smiled at life with a mother's pride. And as they kissed each other's lips, for a moment, the sun and moon eclipsed. This is the original primal romance. This is the original reason that we fall for each other, fall on each other, try to consume each other without harming each other, that we see each other and are inspired to give up our life, that we die for each other and live for each other, that we go through the miracle of life together. But this is rooted in a divine meditation that exalts it. So it can't be made despicable as long as we hold this meditation. And this is what's missing in our world. The poetry is missing. I mean the poetry in our heart, so that we look at each other and see each other in a beautiful way. I was going down the street today. I did a little shopping and walked down and got Sandy and I a bite to eat. And as I was walking speedily down the sidewalk, this young lady in her maybe 20s was walking, and she turned and glanced at me somewhat nervously because I was steaming my way down the sidewalk. Like, oh my God, this guy's, about to overtake me. But as she looked over at me, she was quite lovely, and I smiled and I said, "Your eyes are so beautiful, I can understand why you're worried, but believe me, I'm just going to my restaurant to get some dinner." And she got it. She went, "Oh, that's fun." Because it was a ha-ha. I wasn't hitting on her. I meant nothing more than, "Oh, you're beautiful. I'm not after you. I'm just going by."
Dinner is more important.
Dinner's That's right. You're totally edible, but dinner's more important. And she got the joke, and it was just this little moment. Those moments are what being human is about. When you know how to do this, you know the play of the cosmos. This is the romance that yogis celebrate. So I want to share a book with you that there's a famous author in the history of India, of Bharat, named Shankar Acharya. And he was one of the most brilliant philosophers of the whole Veda. But one mysterious book he wrote that has puzzled everyone. Do you see that diagram on the cover? That's called the Sri Yantra. This is the ultimate geometric diagram depicting Shiva and Durga's embrace as they create a universe. This is 9 triangles, 5 pointing downward, 4 pointing upward, superimposed upon one another at the center. And those then create this entire diagram, and the entire diagram is a geometric basis of the laws of form and the numbers of proportions and ratios that make a universe possible. In this is the base 9 number system on which astronomy is based, on which ratios are based, and on which the entire mathematical systems of our existence are based. And this is one of the best kept secrets. And the book that it's in is called the Soundalahari, S-A-U-N-D, sound, S-A-U-N-D, A-R, Soundar, Ya, La, Hari, S-A-U-N-D-A-R-Y, A-L-A-H-A-R-I, Soundar, Ya, Lahari. Soundarya Lahari. I know, it's fun. Sanskrit's like that. But in this book, Shankar Acharya has started at her toes and written in Sanskrit poetry verses describing the beauty of the divine mother, of the feminine divine, and he starts at her toes and goes all the way to her top of her head, leaving nothing out. He describes her cosmic beauty in the most elegant Sanskrit. And this book, and I'll show you both of them, I'll have them on the table as you're leaving so you can write down the data to get the books if you want. They're an elegant presentation by one of the greatest Vedic philosophers, who was a complete celibate. So this was not a horn dog reading Playboy magazine and then describing the Divine Mother's vagina. This was a celibate for life, greatest Sanskrit scholar, one of the top 5 that ever lived in the last 2,000 years in Bharat, writing a profound poetry book in Sanskrit describing the divine, feminine, divine's beauty in the most elegant, eloquent poetry. And she deserves nothing less than that. I'm going to pass this around for everyone to handle. Please be careful and do not drop it. This is the best form of it that I have. That's what that's there for. But thank you, my beloved. So this is the most famous geometrical design on our planet and the most pregnant with meaning. And inherent in this design is the secret of the sacred geometry and mathematics of the entire cosmos. Beside which, it is the union of Shiva, the immortal union of Shiva and Shakti and Durga. So Shiva's other name, this is very important, so listen, is Yoga Ishvara. Say it.
Yoga Ishvara.
So Isha in Sanskrit means someone who's in charge of a department. The chief of all the police people in Vancouver is the Isha of the police. The one who's the captain of all the fire stations is the Isha of the firemen. The Isha of the military is the 5-star general. There's Isha, now that's amongst humans. We're called the Pura Isha in yoga. This is the city of 9 gates. Pura means city. And so we are the Isha of our own body. Every one of you in this room is in charge of your body. That's why I can't touch it without your permission. See, I had to ask, can we shake hands? And she had to agree and shake hands because she's the mayor of that body. I can't just grab her hand without her permission. That's an offense. I'm violating that body. So each one of us is the mayor of this, and this is the boundary of your city. To go any closer than this to another human being, you should be asking permission. Unless they're a Rakshasa destroying the freedom of others around you, and you're a protector. In that case, different game. And anyone can defend themselves against a Rakshasa. But in all respectful situations, that's the boundary. That's where the space of the person who owns that body begins. No one should get any closer than that without their permission and without their cooperation. So this teaching was the rite of passage of puberty. As you passed through puberty to being an adult, in our culture, you get to drive and you get drunk and probably stoned. But you actually probably in our culture now have sex before you can drive a car for about half the population, which is tragic. With no training whatsoever, we all just bumbled into each other before we could even do things like drive a car or anything else. Because instead of unveiling these secrets to us in a meaningful, sequential way, showing us the sacredness of the body we occupy, explaining the secrets of it to us, and having us enter into that maturity, we're at 18 if we use that number. Now you may choose your sexual partner. That's essentially what we're saying. Now you are the mayor of your city. You're the Pura Isha. Now you may choose, but first remember all this sacred knowledge so that you don't approach that as an animal, you approach it as a human. This is the crux of this. Not only is it truth, not only is the universe that churned out us as its highest creation that we know of, except for the Deva populations, but that run the universe, but us as the highest animal, shall we say. We're the highest mammalian form. That means mama has breasts, mammalian form who has free will. And with that free will, we're supposed to role model on where we come from while we live where we are. That's the essence of being a human. Role modeling the ideal and trying to live up to the ideal while being the human is what keeps us from just being an animal. It's that higher ideal, and that there's no other higher ideal that explains male and female except a male and female divine. Everything else erases it. And that's exactly what the Abrahamic religions did. For whatever reason, not out to blame anybody, I'm just saying the truth. The three Abrahamic religions destroyed the male and female divine completely, and they don't allow it to be spoken of or represented in iconography. And as a consequence, they have no rite of passage that teaches it. And as a result, they have damaged and destroyed gender relations on our planet in terrible ways. And any culture that is worth its salt has a sacred explanation of masculinity and femininity. And that means there's a go-to for the females and a go-to for the males. And I have a little story about this. If you've heard it from me before, just memorize it because it's a good one. But there was a young Catholic priest who was transferred from somewhere in North America to Africa, to a large church in an African country. And there were two buildings, the large church and the small temple. And in the small temple was a black Madonna, banned from most places now, but a black Madonna. And then, of course, the rest, Jesus and all the rest, was in the big church. The black women would all go to the small temple and talk for hours to the black Madonna as a group. And the young white Caucasian priest just thought this was terrible. He thought they should be over there talking to Jesus. This, these idol worshipers, you know what I'm saying? Because Catholic Church came out of Rome, remember that. So anyway, so he hides in the little temple one day, and while they're all over there talking to Madonna, he says, "This is Jesus, you should all be talking to me." One of the black women answers back just as fast as a whip, "You be quiet, son, we're talking to your mama." Perfect. This is the missing vitamin in our culture. This is missing in romance. It's missing everywhere. How much longer then? Okay, thanks. So this is how we, so a couple stories, and then, so in this form as Shiva Linga, you will find this in a receptacle, but this doesn't represent her correctly because I don't have one proportionate to these, and so I've been using other holders. But there's a male and female of these, which is present in all Shiva temples, and the linga sits in this container, which represents Durga, and then liquids, milk and honey and water and other things are poured over the top of this to cool the reactor. Because in a sense, Shiva is dangerous. So when Shiva gets angry, he becomes Rudra. And when Durga gets angry, she becomes Kali. So what they're in charge of is their mother and father nature, so they're mountains and valleys. Did you get that in the poem? That's how they're depicted in the Veda. The valley with all this, the cornucopia, think cornucopia for the feminine, for Durga. From the feminine, all good things come. If you cultivate a relationship with the feminine and love her correctly and adore her and protect her and hold her correctly. Protect does not mean superior to. It means use your muscles to protect. Use your strength to protect. And let her do the thing that she does. Then all good things pour forth from the feminine energy. This is the ancient teaching. She's the cornucopia. And therefore, she must be held in the just right way, under her direction. That's the missing piece that we didn't learn. Not controlled by the masculine. He is in her service permanently. So here's the great secret. And if you understand this, you'll understand how this finally shows up in culture. In public, the wife never contradicts or undermines the dignity and reputation of her husband. In private, at home, the home is hers and whatever she says goes. That's the quid pro quo. The home is the woman. The man gets a place there, like a little corner there. The rest is hers. Full stop.
Now you know why I keep them around.
Yeah, and that's why this is called the domicile. The word dame comes from that. It's dam in Sanskrit, D-H-A-M. So the domicile belongs to the female. It is her womb. It's her room. It's her space. And in the wisest cultures, if there's a divorce, the woman gets the house. The children and the woman get the house, and the man goes and figures it out. That's it. There's no other civilized answer to breaking up. The woman is safe and the children are safe, full stop. And the man, if you're going to leave, go figure it out. You're a man. Man up and go do it. Start over, whatever. Don't be a sissy. Get out there and just do it. You're designed to sleep on the road if you have to. A woman is not. So protect her. So these are the fundamental ancient codes. And this is Dharma. Dharma is living that with each other. Why doesn't the woman undermine the man in public? Because that means the man is no longer honored in his community, because it means he's so despicable or so wimpy or so weak that even one woman doesn't respect him. Why should everyone else? Why should anyone else? Really, and this is so secret and but it's so important that anyone from India, any lady from Bharat will know this. There's a thing called tying Rakhie. Tying Rakhie is a little string bracelet, and once a year, the ladies get to tie Rakhie on the men. Why? Well, because by our nature in the male body, we form affiliations to a particular female, and we think, and she can tell he's thinking the wrong thoughts about us. Those are not the thoughts I want him to be thinking about us. But she's not thinking, I don't like him. I don't like him that way. Ladies, have you not? Have men in this relationship? And you've got to sort it out somehow. And you don't want to tell them, just buzz off, I don't like you. You want to say, I like you actually, but not that way. So it's called tying Rakhie. You tie Rakhie on them, and the Rakhie means you are now my protector. The man is now the woman's protector. Quid pro quo. What does she give him? She always speaks well of him. When the British were in India, there was a saying that developed: 3 ways to get a message across: telephone, telegraph, tell a woman. Opinion is created by the female, not by the male. Reputation is created by the male. Opinion is created by the female, because they're the ones with the best judgment on everything. So that's the saying. Behind doesn't mean behind. It means supporting every great man is a great woman whose greatness he's reflecting. Always. And this is the understanding. So when you tie Rakhie, the woman is securing the relationship and saying, I'm not your romance ever. You're my brother, I'm your sister. And from now on, I will speak well of you throughout the community for your integrity and your qualities. And If you tie Rakhie with 30 dynamic females in a community, and you're a man, and you live up to being their protector, when the chips are down, when they need someone, you come and help out. Believe me, this holds a community together. For the man, it makes their day. What do you think a rock star was, except a lot of Shakti, a lot of Durgas are saying how great this person is, and then everybody else thinks Elvis is great.
But he was great.
I believe all the girls that he was. Okay,
Okay, he's saying.
a couple quick stories. These stories are from the Puranas, and they're depictions of this relationship between Shiva and Durga and her various names. The first one is at the very, very, very beginning. So what I wanted you to get out of this is that all yogis, Shiva has been Yoga Ishvara. Shiva is the goal of Ashtanga yogis, to know Shiva directly and become like him. Shivoham. The yogis are trying to become like Shiva. Meaning, if you'll note, Shiva is sitting at the top of the mountain, completely self-contained. In actual fact, originally, the depictions of Shiva were, as a yogi, he's sitting in a full lotus, he's sitting in yogic trance, and he has an erection that goes about up to here. And what does it mean? It means that he's not affected by that at all. He has completely dominated his animal nature. 100% dominated it. He's still virile. It's not from weakness, it's saying. It's because he no longer is driven by that one greatest force, which is we're all compelled and impelled and even made crazy by our gender specificity. It is our identification with our body and its gender that is the primal illusion of being embodied. If you can go past that, which is called a hamkara, say it.
Ahamkara.
Aham means I am, and kara means my car. No, thinking that you're the car is the number one first original illusion. From that, all the other illusions come. Realizing that you're driving in your car is to be a yogi. Never forgetting it is to be a perfected yogi. Shiva simply represents the greatest force, this male sexual energy that makes the lower males just blind animals, has completely been overcome by Shiva. He doesn't respond to it at all. And therefore, he has none of the blind animal compulsions that you might expect him to have. He rides a bull. Get it? Because if you've ever been on a farm and seen a bull with an erection, you get what I'm talking about. Mounting the cows and the horses too. So when you live on a farm, you get your sex education quite young. Because between the stallions and the mares and the bulls and the cows, okay then. So that's what it's all about. Okay, at the animal nature. So Shiva is called Pashupati. Say it.
Pashupati.
Pashu means animal. In Hebrew, it's Peshach. It became Easter, where you kill the lamb. You kill the animal, sacrifice an animal. Shiva is the one who controls the animal nature, and yoga is what does it. See the irony in our world? We're still doing yoga just as don't I have a cute asana? Instead of being the Atma and using asana and pranayama and all of those to be the Atma. Okay, so here's the story. So here's this primal Shiva, and he lives out in the woods, as you see him depicted, with snakes crawling around him, and he doesn't care. And with completely in trance. And he's not chasing his urges or anything. He's just completely turned his senses within, locked everything down. These were the original yogis. They lived in the forest. They put some kusa grass down, they put a deer skin down, they put a cloth on top of that. This kept the bugs away and the scorpions away and the snakes away. And then they went into deep meditation and they stayed there for years until they just, that's what the asana was for. You put your body in an asana and you can stay that way for a week. You just. So Shiva is on the planet as Shiva, whereas Durga has embodied as the princess of one of the original humans created by the Manus, and his name was Daksha. Daksha was a king, and he was very regal, and he had quite large realm and all of that, and she was his darling princess daughter. So imagine she's just as beautiful and girly and princess, but powerful, of course, and all of that. And she's this regal princess, and so her father is thinking who she should marry, some eligible prince and all of that. Who does she fall in love with?
Shiva.
Shiva. I think he's Rasta, yeah? You see he got dreadlocks? You got him all the way down to here. He's out in the woods. So she falls for Rastafari. Kind of like happened in England recently just now, kind of in reverse, yeah? But in this case, bad news for the father. So she goes to live with Shiva, but her father really doesn't like him, doesn't like anything about it, doesn't want to hear about it. And he decides he's going to have this really big yagya. Now, yagya is where they build a big fire, and what they're doing is they're thanking the devas for everything we have, which is kind of a way of bringing everyone into cooperation, just like this class. We meet each other, we get closer. You do this enough, the knowledge is the fire. We're all sitting around the fire here with that in common, so we start to trust each other more, know each other better, things like that. So a community that does these yagyas gets bound together by their link to the divines and by their link to each other. Light a big fire, put things into the fire, etc. So Daksha invites everyone but Shiva. Or Shiva's also a deva, you got to understand. He's the deva. He's the first deva. Then Brahma creates everything, but Shiva's what gets the whole thing rolling, see? That's what that poem is about. So he's left out, and the time comes for the yagya, and the name of Durga in this little story is Sati. Her name is Sati, Daksha's daughter. So when she finds out that Shiva is not welcome at the yagya, she goes up to her father and says, "You dare not invite my man to this yagya? Fine. Then this body that you gave me, I don't want it anymore." And she knows the mantra to light her own body on fire. She does it with mantra. Om Agni Prajvalitam Mande Jatavedam Bhutashanam Suvarnam Amalam Saminam Vishparamukam Sri Agya Purushaya Namaha. She starts chanting and chanting and chanting. Her body bursts into flames. Meanwhile, one of Shiva's disciples is there and goes running to him and says what's just happened. And Shiva stands up. He transforms from Yogeshvara, from Yoga Shiva into Rudra, the ultimate destroyer of everything. He grabs one of the hairs of his head and he goes, Rudra, filled with fiery, destructive force. And what he throws on the ground goes and becomes this huge giant called Veerbhadra. "Yes, master. What do you want, master?" And Shiva says, "Go to Daksha's sacrifice, destroy it, and bring me his head." So Veerbhadra goes to the yagya, shreds it, cuts off Daksha's head. Shiva finally makes it to the yagya. He's in great grief and he sees the smoldering body of Sati. He picks her up and wraps her around his shoulders, still smoldering, her body. This is all very primal stuff. It's meant to be. This is the smoldering core of our planet. This is the very beginning of existence. These are the raw fundamental forces that are underneath everything. And he then leaves her on his shoulders. He eventually takes pity upon Daksha and gives him a new head because he had his head cut off by Virabhadra. He gives him the head of a goat. Yeah, little humor in all these stories. And he wears her body for thousands of years. Thousands of years go by. And the devas are just going, oh, this is terrible. Oh my gosh. It's so tragic that they got separated this way. Finally, Indra uses his thunderbolt and cuts her body, Sati's body, into 50 pieces. And they each fall to the ground in different places in what is now Bharat. And each of those places is now called a Shakti Pita. It is a natural formation in the rocks that looks like a vagina. And they're sacred places where everyone goes there knowing that this is the deity, the natural deity of Durga Ma. Just as a stalactite or something like this is the natural deity of Shiva. But the genital is just a symbol of the being. And so these 50 Shakti Pitas still exist. And there's pilgrimages in Bharat where you can go and you'll go to all 50 of them in the course of the pilgrimage. So now, how are they going to get reunited, you ask? Well, it turns out that Sati, and this is what's the origin of this so-called rite where the widow burns herself, the rite of Sati. What I want you to understand is it was always voluntary. There's a rule in reincarnation that if you're married to someone and you love them and you want to keep being with them, when they leave their body, if you go on their funeral pyre, you'll go exactly where they go. There's a special clause that lets you go to your next destination, whatever theirs is becomes yours. You hop, it's like getting on someone's motorcycle. You hop on the motorcycle, your physical body gets burned up, and you go where they go. Okay? So this was only allowed to be voluntary. What gave this widow burning reputation was when the Muslims went to India and conquered it and raped and pillaged. They went to Rajasthan and killed all the men and told the women, you're going to be in our harems now. And the women went, yeah, over my dead body. So when their husbands were burned, 201, all the women climbed on the funeral pyres of their husband rather than go with their conquerors. They were all warrior women. And they all said, no possible way am I going with you. I am getting on the motorcycle. So this is very different than forcing that, which is a travesty. No one ever was supposed to do that, just so you know. Okay, so that what happens next is there's a king, and his name is Himavan, and Himavan is the king of the Himalaya mountains. Now this is very important because you can feel in these stories, can't you, that they're embedded in nature? Do you feel that we're talking about mother and father nature here? This is not an abstract deity somewhere over there. This is the male and female divine in us, in nature, in rock formations, in canyons, in mountains, in all of it. And they're dynamic, active forces, and we, in our embodiment, are extensions of them. You can feel it and hear it and listen to it, and you can also become it. Meaning, if you're in a female form and you aren't correctly embodied, then talk to Durga. Become correctly embodied. Become her. Become an extension of her. If you're a man, become an extension of Shiva. And in both cases, it means you'll become your best, most honorable, most interesting, most divine, most idealistic being. Because you make them your role model. You become an extension of that. So the next birth is that Sati takes birth as Parvati, say it?
Parvati.
The daughter of the king of Meru, Parvat, of the mountains of the Himalayas. In other words, she becomes a Shila. That's what the Aussies call girls. Girls are Shilas. The Sanskrit for a stone from the mountains is a Shaila. A Shaila. That's not a Shaila, that's a lingam. A Shaila is a piece of the rock from the actual Himalayas. So Parvati is the daughter of these mountains. It's a great switch on the whole image. So one day when she's a young princess, just coming of age, the famous Narada Muni, the yogi who travels between the transcendental realm and the material realm, comes and talks to her about Shiva. And as soon as she hears about Shiva, she falls madly in love with him. Just the second she hears his name, she goes, oh my gosh. Because she, remember, was Sati before. And she's come back again to take this to the next level. So the next level of it is, she then says, okay, how do I connect with this Shiva? And he teaches her the mantra. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Now she's going to be the Shakti Ma part, but not yet. So she takes a lingam, goes into a cave, leaves being the princess, and spends day and night incessantly just Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And finally, he comes to her and he says, all right, what do you want? What do you want? So this is part of the yogic thing. If you pester a deva enough, they'll come to you and say, what do you want? You say their name enough, and they go, all right, stop with my name. What do you want? Now, this is the trick. If you ask for the wrong thing, you're cursed. Because we're stupid, we're humans, we ask for the wrong thing all the time. So nothing worse than asking a deva for the wrong thing. First thing you say is, what do you think? Whatever you suggest. You see, that's the protocol. Whatever you think. I want to be like you. Monkey see, monkey do. I want to be like you. So Shiva appears and he says to her, so what do you want? She says, you. He says, no, I mean, what do you want? She says, you. In fact, nothing else will do. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Finally, he accepts and they're reunited. So this is showing you these very, very ancient roots, because if you don't want to talk to the later avatars, if it's too complex for you, if it's not quite sitting with you, then this is the baseline of all cosmic relationship between we embodied humans and whatever came before us. It is the archetype on which we're based. Durga, Shiva, and in its radical destructive form, Kali, Rudra. Because entropy or degradation is the essence of matter. So one last poem, and then I'm going to go for questions. We're going to be done. So this one. It's called The Secret That Cannot Be Shown. Before we do it, Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om.
Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om.
Adi Shakti, Maha Shakti, Para Shakti, Om.
Adi Shakti, Maha Shakti, Para Shakti, Om.
Adi Shakti,
Adi Shakti,
Maha Shakti,
Maha Shakti,
Para Shakti, Om.
Para Shakti, Om.
Adi means original, Maha means greatest, and Para means most sublime and supreme. Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om.
Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om Shakti, Om.
Adi Shakti, Maha Shakti, Para Shakti, Om.
Adi Shakti, Maha Shakti, Para Shakti, Om.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Shakti Ma.
Om Shakti Ma.
The secret that cannot be shown. Parvati said, O fountainhead of wisdom, O great Shambhu, O mountain peak, all yogis seek, white Lord whose throat is blue, erect and proud above the clouds, I see you sit all day, absorbed in bliss, mysterious. And so to you I pray, reveal your heart. Oh, please impart the seeds of sacred lore. Discourse on this eternal bliss and open heaven's door. Unfold your secret to all who need it. Please enter within their minds. In that embrace, release your grace. Illuminate the blind. When Shiva spoke, he reached and stroked Parvati's blushing cheek. O goddess fair, your quest is rare, for few know what to seek. Most spend their days in an endless maze, whipped by pleasure and pain, driven by greed, controlled by need. They take birth again and again. Confused by skin, the worlds within are obscured by cause and effect. The shadow play steals their minds away, the screen where illusions reflect. An army confusion promotes this delusion. The generals greed, anger, and lust, lay siege to the soul. In the dark they control all the things in life that can rust. O Shakti divine, I sense your design, Shiva said. It is there in your glance. You wish to reveal the emotions we feel while engaged in our cosmic dance. For you are compassion, surrounded by passion, just as I am wisdom at rest. My strength is within, while yours on your skin reveals the truth in your breast. So I will comply without asking you why, for the mind should not argue with grace. And the rain from your eyes will flood paradise as I speak of our endless embrace. We are one, you and I. Like the earth and the sky, the sun and the moon show our mood. The mountain is me, while you are the valley, filled with your body as food. And the night is your hair. In the light, I am there. The rainbow is a comb on your head. While the seasons revolve, our loving evolves on the platform of matter, our bed. The leaves are our words. Our emotions are birds. Sweet flowers that bloom are our smiles. While the seconds that tick are the pleasures we pick, and the curve of the globe is your wiles. We are time deep in space. We are thought finding place. We are kissing each cell into life. We are both sides of breath. We are birthing and death. We are lovers as husband and wife. We are eagle and dove. We are thoughts holding love. We are sunrise and sunset revolving. We are water and fire with eternal desire, transcendent but always evolving. Then Parvati said, Lord, I think the last word should always remain unspoken, for words cannot touch our love, and as such can only be held as a token. Then both of them smiled on a mountain peak wild, in a forest unseen and unknown, and in silence they kissed, exchanging the gist of the secret that cannot be shown. Thank you.
Yeah.